Jack, welcome to the Live the Width of Your Life podcast. It's so good to be here with you.
It is wonderful to be here, Aneta. Thank you so much for inviting me back.
Of course. Yeah, it's so nice. I think we met like over a year ago. Was it something like a year or two? I don't even remember.
It was longer than that. I was on your podcast, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not making that up. I don't know how long have you been doing it? You've been doing it for a while now.
August of 22. So it'll be 3 years
Okay.
in August. So
Yeah.
it might have been some time. And I love that we've stayed connected. And I love all the work that you're doing with Kuel Life. And when you reached out to me and you said, hey, I wrote this book and it's really personal. And then you sent it to me. I finished reading it this week, which I wanted to before we had our conversation. It is so beautiful. And I just want you to know that I could feel your heart as I was reading through all of the different sections of the book. And I would love for you to maybe just talk a little bit about setting the stage of how this book came to be in the world.
Yeah, that's a big question. Think about that. Like, how did anything come to be in the world? Just as a little background for your audience, just in case they weren't privy to our first conversation, I'm Jacqueline Jack Perez, and you and I had our first conversation a few years ago about my business, Kuel Life, which is a platform that's dedicated to normalizing aging for women, and that's dealing with women in midlife. And so, guess what, though? I am also a woman in midlife. And what does that mean? We all know, all of us know by now, if we've been at this for any length of time, that this part of life comes with some of the most amazing opportunities and challenges we have yet to face. And this book that poured out of me, it was channeled through me. I barely remember writing it, came at me over a period of a lot of, I think it was the apex of dealing with some big grief that I did not understand was coming from, believe it or not, empty nest. There's a thing that happens to a lot of us at this stage of life. If you ended up with a kid because you wanted one or you didn't want one, but you ended up with one anyway, and you're now in your mid 50s, your 60s, they eventually go away. If you did it right, they eventually go away. And that transition, Aneta, from full time parenting, and especially since I got my son through junior and senior year of high school, was during the pandemic. I got so much of him. I didn't get that rite of passage of when your kid gets the car keys, they start to leave, and you really don't see them anymore, their junior, senior year of high school. I did see him. And so the transition when he left for college, it hit me so hard. I didn't realize it though. I didn't know. And it spiraled me into a low level depression for several years, several years. And this book, I think, came out at the apex of processing that grief. When you ignore transitions and you ignore grief, I think we all know this, it doesn't go away. It just sits in the corner politely waiting for you to bring it back out. And when my son went to college, I also had a bad skydiving accident that left me with 3 fractured vertebrae. And so I didn't get to process the grief of his leaving. I put that in a corner because I had to heal. Flash forward years of internalizing this depression. And then my sister moved away 3,000 miles to California, and she and I have been super close. We had our babies 10 days apart on purpose. Who does that? That's how close we were. What happened was, I guess everything just hit me at the same time. And I literally didn't know what to do with what was inside me. I didn't know what to do with it. I'm sure you have felt that way before, where you physically feel like you can't contain the pain or the sorrow, the hurt. You just can't keep it in anymore. And that's what birthed this book.
I think sometimes when there is so much change and there's so much energy shifting, and we're no longer able to distract ourselves, we then find ourselves in a situation where we have to address what's always maybe been underneath, but we just didn't deal with it. And with you, you just had so much change. Your son going away, and then the accident, which I want to ask you about, your sister leaving, and suddenly here you are feeling all the big things, all the big feelings, and needing to deal with it in, I guess, the healthiest way, whatever that was for you at the time.
Yeah, lying on the ground and kicking and screaming and holding my breath didn't seem like a viable option at 60. So
Could be.
I chose I chose expressing it in words.
Yeah. No, I love that. What happened with the skydiving accident? I skydived twice and I'm like, wait a second, how does that happen?
Yeah, so I did it 3 times, and the 3rd time was the day that my son we were taking him to college, and we took him to a drop zone first before we were gonna drop him off at university. He and my godson wanted to jump out of an airplane before they started school, and I thought to myself, "I can't let these boys jump out of an airplane by themselves. What if something goes wrong? I need to be there to help." As
Yeah.
if, right? What do I know? So I signed myself up and I went, and thankfully I can report that they both landed beautifully. And man, my landing just wasn't great. And I heard my body break. I heard the bones go and I remember sitting there on the ground with all that mess because you've done it before. You get this mess of stuff. You're attached to some dude or some woman in the back or whatever. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm in this dirt field, there's all this stuff. I am in so much pain, I'm vomiting, and I just remember thinking, "I just paralyzed myself. I'm 58 years old, and I just effed up the rest of my life."
Wow.
Luckily, I can tell you that was in August. In April of the following year, I ran the Charleston 10K.
Oh
The
gosh. Okay. So your body, you healed
I
from that
did.
accident. Oh,
I did everything I was supposed to do. For the first time in my life, I listened to what doctors were telling me. And I followed the rules. I needed to be able to function. But that put my mindset away from processing, "Oh, my baby left," because now I'm like, "Oh my God, am I not going to walk? What's going on?"
that's terrifying. So your son left, your
Yeah.
sister moved away.
And I lost a friendship,
Mm,
which I now understand happens. I just recently read that we tend to cycle through relationships about every 7 years. That made me pause. Like, that made me do a little inventory and, like, can I say that's true for me? And I didn't realize it, but yeah, it is true. And I recently just lost what I believed to be a lifetime relationship. And it turned out that it was a season and not a lifetime. And that loss was really painful.
mm. It's so interesting when we lose relationships because we tend to, I know for me personally, I just always go, what was my part in this? Was this inevitable? And I think you're right. I think that some relationships, there's just a season for it, and it's not necessarily a bad thing or blame. It's just we put this pressure that everything has to be forever, and some things aren't. And I think that's okay too. It takes a lot of the pressure off. How did you deal with the grief of that, losing that friendship or that relationship?
I'm very impressed with both of us, meaning we've both done a lot of work on ourselves. Neither one of us come at this, and we both just had real honest conversation about why the relationship wasn't working and that we still cared for each other and loved each other deeply and loved each other's families. And there's all that history. However, that right now it makes sense to just admire one another from afar.
That's so true. As I'm looking at the table of contents for your book, Metamorphosis, which I love, so appropriate, reading the book and knowing you a little bit, I was really impressed just at the structure, which was so interesting and different. You're an amazing poet. I don't know if you've always been a poet or not, but just reading through, I was like, wow, it's really beautiful and creative and interesting. And I love the structure. And maybe you can walk us through the table of contents. There's beginnings and rebirth, life cycles and struggles, family and parenting, friendship and connection, seeking and craving, and then you've got the closure. And so there's these 6 different sections. Did you, when you were writing this book, because I've written a book and now I'm writing my second one, And it's interesting to see how books start to take shape. So did you just start writing and then afterwards you're like, oh, this is the structure or the shape that is starting to organically come together? Or did you start with the table of contents and say, okay, this is how I'm going to organize it and then start writing?
So the way that I'm built and designed, I would never start with an outline or a table of contents.
And what do you mean the way you're built
That
into?
would freeze me up. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Okay.
For me, it was completely organic.
Mm,
And as I mentioned earlier, in a way, I didn't write this book, wrote
yeah.
itself. And
Hmm.
you would thank you for the compliment that I'm an amazing poet. Ask me when I started writing poetry. September, the month that I wrote the book.
Yeah.
That's when I started writing poetry. I think you know this of me. I am a writer. I've been
Yeah.
an essayist for
Yeah.
years, and I write under the umbrella Jack's Smack. And so I honestly thought that this process would have led me to a book of essays.
Hmm.
But when I went to sit down to write the essays, what came out was a bunch of guttural ideas that
Hmm.
were not worthy of sentences. And I had to figure out, what do I do with these guttural ideas? And that's when I thought, oh, okay, if I can get this emotion across in 4 lines in a stanza versus a 200 or 300 word paragraph,
Yeah.
is that a more powerful medium? I think it's a more powerful medium.
Yeah.
It's like, I've always admired songwriters because a novelist can use thousands upon thousands of words to get their idea across, to get you into their world. A songwriter does it in 3 minutes. And
Hmm.
he or she has to repeat himself or herself a lot for those refrains. So
Yeah.
they have fewer words. I kind of looked at that and I thought,
Mhm.
wow, I'll accept that challenge. So I'm not a songwriter, but I chose poetry, and I chose a really strict rhyming, an ABAB, and I chose it for the whole book just to further complicate my life, because not only then am I using just 4 lines per stanza, I
Yeah.
also have to get it to rhyme, and it
Yeah.
has to make sense. Because sometimes with rhyming poetry, it can come out real sing-songy and annoying, but for whatever reason, I decided I needed to make it rhyme. I don't know
Mhm.
why. Probably because I don't know much about poetry, as I've just become one like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last time I wrote poetry before this, I was a junior in high school or a senior in high school, and my teacher made me.
It's interesting that that just found you in that way and that you have this gift and this talent. I was hoping that maybe you could read from the book to give folks a sense. One of the other things that you do is you have QR codes where you're reading, and which I think is lovely. And I don't know if you have a favorite or something that you would like to share with the audience today.
I have a few favorites, but I picked one out specifically for your audience, given that your title is Living the With. And
Mhm.
so I picked out a poem that's called A Journey Without End, because
Mhm.
that's wide,
Yeah.
expansive.
Yeah.
And although this poem is particularly about my desire and need and just drive to constantly travel. I'm a big wanderlust person. I've traveled to more than 72 countries, and I have, the list is almost endless.
Love
And so
that.
while this is about travel, it's a higher level metaphor about life. And it's called A Journey Without End. An unfurling map beneath my hands reveals the dreams of distant lands. Each fold a lure, each crease a plea to chase the wonders that beckon me. Through bustling streets and whispers of air, I seek the wonder, the thrill laid bare. In markets vibrant where colors collide, I lose myself, my spirit as my guide. With compass steady and heart aligned, I trace the paths that fate has designed. From sacred places where spirits soar, my need for travel springs from a core. A sacred calling, a longing profound where magic lingers, and memories abound. In far off lands, my soul ignites alive with odors, sounds, and sights. I thrive in the dance of foreign tongues, in customs rich, and songs unsung. Each new horizon a vibrant spark, transforming dullness, igniting the dark. The time between trips feels like waiting in line, a pause before stepping into the shine. With dreams of horizons calling my name, I yearn for the stage where the world is my flame. I'll roam the globe until my last breath, absorbing the wonders, defying death. With each new journey, my spirit will soar, embracing the world's vibrant roar.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and so while I did write it about my need to be traveling, it is a higher level message about just seeking things in life and being ready for that next adventure and filling your life.
When you started writing, did you know that this was going to be something that you were going to publish, or did you just start writing as part of your own healing journey first?
Yeah, I had no idea it was going to turn into a book. I wanted to write a book, Aneta, and I told myself, I even rented an Airbnb in Chicago last summer and I set up a table. No, I'm not making this up, with a great view of the city. And I set up on the round table in the living room. I had my laptop, I had all my note cards, I had all my essays. I was going to write the transformative midlife essay book.
Mm.
And I couldn't do it. I don't know why. I just couldn't do it. So when I started writing this poetry, I didn't think it was going to be a book. I thought, shoot, I can't write that book. And then about 15 days into it, I realized, I'm like, I think this is a book. I think you will appreciate this, and your audience will probably appreciate this. I was at an event in Rhode Island where I was speaking, and part of the event, we put a tree in the ground, and everyone had to write a little note card of a manifestation for that following year and then bury it with the tree, right? I wrote on that card to be a published author within the year.
Mm.
Okay, I did that in May. I go to Chicago in July. It's not looking like it's going to happen. But I'm letting you know, it's not looking like that card's going to do anything. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of September, I'm like, I think I'm writing that book. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing when you do that? You set an intention sometimes and you don't even realize when it's naturally unfolding in front of you. And you're the second person I talked to this week who rented an Airbnb, had this sort of expectation of, okay, I'm setting myself up, I'm getting the desk, I'm picking the location, I'm going to write this book. And then in her case, actually it ended up turning into a completely different book. And so sometimes what we think and actually what happens instead are two very different things. And so you said 15 days in, you realized, oh, this is actually going to turn into something different. Did you choose to self publish or did you go?
I did. I
Yeah.
self published because I have zero patience. And
Yeah.
honestly, if I didn't self publish, I'd still be pushing this thing on publishers and I would have lost interest by now. Would have gotten bored with my own stuff by now and lost interest.
Yeah.
So I knew that the only way I was going to get it out into the world
Hmm.
is to just get it out in the world and then deal with it later. Now my issue is, how do I sell it? How do I get it into the hands of the women that I believe would benefit from it? And I really do. I don't think I'm that special. And so I write about these truths of mine,
Hmm.
and the women that are picking up the book are saying, but this is my truth too. I see
Yeah.
myself in this poem. I see myself in this poem. And it's very gratifying. Selfishly, it's also, gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not a
Yeah.
freak. I'm freaky, but I'm not a freak. And it's helped me feel less alone.
Yeah. I love when you talk about it's the identity shift too when our kids leave and suddenly they don't depend on you and they're not living with you any longer and they're moving into their own next level of adulthood and their chapter in their life. So, what have you learned on that process? So, this happened, your son left last year. Is that correct?
No, he left almost 4 years ago. That's what I'm
Oh,
saying. I was in a weird depressive state for a few
for a
years and
while.
didn't understand why. I thought I was healing from the back. If you think about all of the stuff that
Yeah.
I went through, it wasn't clear to me. No, he left a while ago, that sucker. The thing is, he wasn't doing well the first couple of years. And I think any parent will tell you you can only do as well as your least happy
Happy.
child.
Yeah, for sure.
I only have one, so that can be good or bad. It means I don't get to average out anything, but
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like you can do that when you have more than one anyway, because it
right.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing well the first couple of
Mm,
years. That added all sorts of bizarre extra stress to me. And now I am so proud of him. He's doing such an amazing job adulting, and he's going to be 23 in September. And we have an amazing relationship, and I am incredibly proud. Excuse me.
yeah.
Just, oh my goodness. Sorry about that. I am incredibly proud of the man he's become and is becoming.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself in terms of the process of having to have a new relationship as your child becomes an adult? Because we're always parents, we'll continue to be parents, but there is a shift in terms of our energetic connection with the child, what we're able to do with some distance. So, what have you learned about yourself over the last 4 years?
I'm going to make you listen to one more poem because this is the answer. This is the answer to your question.
Yes.
And this is the one I made a grown man cry at a book signing the other day. So I'm letting you know right now. So here's the answer to that question. My son at 22 has spread his wings, no longer bound by apron strings. Yet, how can one so freshly grown claim all the wisdom of the unknown? Once held in tender, guiding care, he now drifts freely through the air. I wrestle with the ache inside to stand aside, let him decide. For years I shaped his world with grace, ran interference, smoothed his pace. But now life's troubles are his alone, and from the sidelines I watch, unknown. I hold the answers, yet speak them not, for wisdom now must be self taught. I whisper questions into the breeze, but wait for him to tell, to seize. The fraying thread of our entwined past, a pull on the strings, however vast, and in that moment, tender and slight, I'll be in the shadows, a beacon of light. So that's how I parent him now. I
Yeah.
keep my mouth shut unless I'm asked.
Yeah.
That's how I parent. I keep my mouth shut unless I'm asked.
Hmm.
The nice thing is that the less I say, the more he asks. I've found that to be true, at least with my relationship, my dynamic with my son. If I let him come to me, he's way more receptive to what I'm going to say. So I try to wait until I'm asked or
Hmm.
manipulate the conversation to get him to ask me. I can do that.
Yeah, I think that our kids at the same time, they're going through their own changes and they're trying to become more independent. And sometimes it's the reminder that we're here and that we're available and they could always come to us, of course. And just sometimes the reminder is great and they will, right? If there's a challenge and they all need things at different times. But in that process, we then also find ourselves with more time and more space to focus on ourselves. I chose to leave my corporate career and start my business. So, what have you done besides writing this book? What have you found yourself doing? What do you have more time to do now that maybe you didn't when you were more hands on?
Absolutely. So before he left, I started Kuel Life. And I believe I started it in anticipation of needing a new baby,
Yeah.
right? Because as he was getting ready to walk out that door, I started Kuel Life. But what I do now that occupies a fair amount of my time is travel. I am a voracious and avid traveler. And so I am either planning a trip, on a trip, or planning someone else's trip. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like I just love to explore. And so I get to do a lot more of that, which I couldn't do before. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it because I had to be at home.
That's so nice. What do you have coming up? Any big trips this year?
I actually am leaving for Cabo, Mexico on Saturday. But that's just, I'm going to go visit a lifelong friend of mine who just got lemurs. He got three baby lemurs, and I get to go play with lemurs. I'm
Oh
so
my gosh.
excited.
Wow. I don't think I've ever said that sentence before. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned because they bite because they're primates. And he was saying like they get really excited and they get really frisky and they'll take a nip at you. And I'm like, that sounds like unpleasant. I'm like, I might have to wear long sleeves or a jean jacket or something.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. One of the other things you talk about in here is just how we change and we notice ourselves changing as women at this stage of life. The body starts changing. We're noticing lines on our face and different things just in the matter sometimes of a year, how much can change. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about, I know you help women with this and you talk so openly about changes that we experience, but what have you discovered in your own journey in terms of your changing body, changing everything?
It's funny because if you had asked me this 6 months ago, I'd give you a completely different answer. However, I'm going through a weird, accelerated change right now in my body physically, and it's not good. And I did some reading, and I guess there are two times in our lives where we age in an accelerated time frame, and one is in our early 40s and the other is in our early 60s. And let me
Oh,
tell you, girl, I'm feeling it. Like I'm feeling pain that I just went to a hand specialist because my hands hurt so much that it's hard for me to lift weights. And I just let him know. I'm like, okay, if we're doing this, or I should say this really fast right now, and if this is only auditory, I just made a downward, like very
yeah,
downward steep motion with my hand. I'm like, as long as we level out, it's some new norm that I can handle because right
yeah,
now I'm in that transition and I'm very fatigued and frustrated and just in constant pain because I'm trying to figure it out. And so, how I deal with it is just like I dealt with it the first time. I get out there and I talk about it, I share it with other women because I don't want anyone to be surprised.
yeah,
And that is why I started Kuel Life because at 52 or 53, all of a sudden I weighed what I weighed the day I gave birth to my son. I look like a Shar puppy with all that back fat, except for Shar puppies are cute and it did not look good on me. And I also started feeling like I could go out in public in my pajamas and nobody would notice. It was bad. And I just couldn't handle spending the next 30, 40 years of my life in some sort of with some sort of invisibility cloak. I deal with I'm handling it the same way. So now I'm like, I have a whole new set of symptoms and I'm just forewarning women. I'm like, this might happen. And if I solve the problem, then I will share with everyone how I ended up solving the problem, which is what I've been doing for the last 8 years with Kuel Life.
yeah. And if folks haven't listened to the first session, like the first time we talked, maybe let's talk about it because I'm 53 and I am noticing all of these changes that are not good. What is happening? How did you deal with it? Like in the early 50s when the body starts changing and you're like, okay, what I used to do isn't working for whatever
Right.
reason.
Oh, girl, I feel your pain. It happened to me at the exact same time. I mean, exact same time.
Yeah.
I tried it all. I tried supplements. I tried eat less, exercise more. I tried stop drinking. I tried it all.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what was wrong was that my hormones, I was so estrogen heavy, even though I didn't have very much estrogen because my hormones were completely gone.
Yeah.
Whatever I had was really estrogen heavy. And so that is why I couldn't get rid of that midsection bloat,
Yeah.
all that stuff, no matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of it. The minute I got on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and I did a ton of research, it is perfect for me. It does not work for everyone. I'm not a doctor. I'm not
Sure.
suggesting you run out and get it. I'm suggesting that if you've tried everything, every lifestyle change you can think of, and it's not working, that you might be fighting a battle you can't win because there might be something chemically, physiologically going on that no lifestyle change is going to rectify. But just between me and you, honestly, if you're shop around, get your blood work done, get the answers you deserve.
Yeah, no, I'm already on it. I definitely
Oh, okay, okay, good.
I just think that there's so much happening, and I think everybody should, like you say, just get the blood work, talk to different specialists. Sometimes our doctors are not as well educated as they can be on hormones.
It's not their fault. If your doctor is anywhere near your age, they weren't taught because they didn't care about women enough to teach that stuff. It's not their fault. They just don't know what they don't know. So find a doctor who specializes, and I hate to say this, but it's called geriatric obstetrician or whatever. We're considered geriatric, which I hate that word.
Feminine hormone.
I hate that. I hate that. But I'll let you know right now, I've been asked, so how long will you stay on the hormones? And I'm like, until they put me in that incinerator. I'm taking them into the incinerator with me, is what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's good. That's worked. And that's really wonderful. What is your hope with this book, Metamorphosis? Because it definitely, I think, has universal messages. Just reading through the two that you read and also the table of contents, everybody can relate to the different topics that you share in this book. What is your hope in terms of people finding it and what you hope that it helps them do in their own life?
I would love to see this on every woman's bedside table, at nighttime table, because honestly, I think there is something in there for every woman over 40. And my sister keeps telling me, stop defining the target market, blah, blah, blah. Different people read it with different intentions and they have different things. And she's right, because that Untethered Threads poem that I read out loud in answer to the parenting
Yeah.
question, that brought a grown man to tears in public. Oh, I was reading it. He's wiping tears from his face. His youngest was just about to leave. And
Yeah.
so he was dealing with that pain. And it made me realize women don't get to own that pain or grief of the child leaving the nest. We don't get to own that. That was a really interesting and eye-opening opportunity for me to see that. But listen, if that man found something in there, I'm letting you know right now because I wrote it as a woman in midlife. And I've said it before, I'm not special. I think my feelings are somewhat universal. And maybe I just have a better ability to put it into concise words. And so that's my gift. Like, here it is. Here's that emotion in some concise words. How about that?
No, it's beautiful. Where can folks find the book right now if they're listening and they say, okay, I need a copy and I maybe want to buy this as a gift for my friend or my sister or my mom?
Would love for everyone to buy it off of my site, which is therealjacksmack.com, or they could buy it off of Kuel Life as well, Kuellife. It's on those two sites. You can find it on Amazon. However, everyone here knows that Amazon takes most of the price of the book, and the book isn't priced very high to begin with.
That's perfect. We'll definitely include those links in the show notes. And Jack, I know last time I asked you what it means to you to live the width of your life, and you really enjoyed that question. And you're able to actually, I think you wrote a post or an article or something about it afterwards. But
I wrote a Jack Smack essay about it. That just really hit me. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
yeah, what has your answer changed at all, or what does it mean to you to live the width of your life?
I don't know if it's changed or not. I'm just going to answer it the way I feel today, and then maybe I'll go back and see if it is different. I'm actually curious. But what I feel like what my answer is right at this moment, Aneta, is basically that I refuse to stay in any of those lanes that I was told to occupy because I don't want to wait for permission, and I definitely don't want to wait for the right time. Because to me, that's like code for never, right? It's never going to happen. So, what that looks like for me is I launched my third business at 52. I launched Kuel Life at 52. It also means I got a dragon tattoo at 59 that is huge on my leg in Thailand. It's the dancing with the grief and the reinvention and the joy all at the same time and the creating of that poetry. It's lifting heavy weights despite these hands. So to me, it's saying yes to all the experiences that expand me and that I don't know. I don't want to be shrunk. I don't want anything that shrinks me. I want to live a life that spills over. the edges and is messy and meaningful. And I just want to quote Andy Grammer, who is a singer songwriter that I absolutely adore. And he has a line that says, I want a life I can't afford to live without. And I think that is just, that speaks to me. I want a life I can't afford to live without. And how do you create that? It's got to be wide. It's got to be messy. It's got to be big. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Jack, thank you for coming back and talking about this book. Thank you for sharing it with me. We'll definitely include all of the links in the show notes. And I hope that every woman is able to buy this book and has it on their nightstand, like you said, that your vision comes true and that they purchase it as a gift, because I think it's a beautiful gift to share with others as well.
Thank you, Anita. It was fun to catch up too a little bit.
It was wonderful. Have an amazing day.
You too.